Some moments don't feel like beginnings. They feel like endings wearing a disguise, quiet, trembling, and too uncertain to name. The early November morning filtered through the tall windows of their San Diego duplex, casting faint shadows across Elena Morgan's bathroom floor. Her hands trembled as she stared at the pregnancy test, the two pink lines as stark as the condensation gathering on the glass. At 30, she had always thought she had her life under control. But now, her heart pounded with a confusing mix of joy and fear. She caught a glimpse of herself in the mirror, wide hazel eyes clouded with doubt, dark chestnut hair tousled from sleep. The tailored blazer hanging on the door felt like a cruel reminder of the image she'd spent years perfecting, a life that had slowly begun unraveling. In the quiet of the morning, the familiar scent of cinnamon almond coffee drifted from the kitchen, where the machine hummed on cue. It was her personal ritual, something she clung to as the rest of her world began to slip. Bowen's late nights at the architecture firm had become more common. Her husband of 3 years, Owen Russell Grant, with his slicked-back brown hair and expensive suits, had grown distant, a stranger who barely existed in their shared space. "Maybe this changes everything," Elena whispered, biting her lower lip, a nervous habit she'd never been able to shake. Her fingers found a crumpled receipt on the counter, and she began sketching random patterns in the margins. An old anxiety tic from childhood. The house felt unusually hollow today. The once celebrated high ceilings and sleek furniture now echoed with silence. She pulled on her favorite dark jeans, paired them with a pale blue silk blouse and suede ankle boots, her armor for what she hoped would be a beautiful turning point. A light spritz of her signature Jo Malone scent, and then her phone buzzed. "Late meeting tonight. Don't wait up," the message read. Her stomach twisted. Lately, Owen's texts had become shorter, cold. The alarms in her mind got louder, but she shoved them aside. Tonight was supposed to be special. She was finally going to tell him. She planned the meal with care, his favorite, a family recipe she had learned from his mother, Lillian Grant, during one of her many attempts to gain the woman's approval. Back at her interior design studio, Elena drifted in and out of focus. While clients talked paint samples and mood boards, she secretly sketched nursery layouts, soft neutrals, minimal yet warm. Her coworkers noticed her distance but chalked it up to holiday stress. Evening came with a biting wind. Elena had set the table with their wedding china, polished silver glinting in the candlelight. The aroma of roasted rosemary chicken mingled with the warm scent of apple crumble cooling on the counter, Owen's favorite dessert. At 9:47 p.m., the front door finally creaked open. Owen's tall frame paused in the entryway, casting a long shadow across the floor. His slate-gray eyes looked weary. His normally sharp suit was slightly wrinkled. The scent of Bleu de Chanel clung to him, familiar and comforting. But there was something else. Something sweeter. Something unfamiliar. And Elena's heart stopped. "You waited up," Owen said, his voice devoid of the warmth it once carried. "I told you not to." "I made dinner," Elena replied, forcing her voice to stay even. "I have something to tell you." Owen loosened his tie, the metal of his wedding band catching a sliver of light. "Can it wait? I'm exhausted. Big presentation early tomorrow." Elena's hand drifted to her stomach instinctively. The test still felt hot in her pocket, like it had been waiting all day for this exact moment. But looking at Owen now, his distant gaze, the way he didn't quite look her in the eye, the words clung to her throat. "Of course," she heard herself say, the lie bitter as it left her lips. "It can wait." Owen turned and walked upstairs, not even glancing at the food she had prepared. Elena remained in the kitchen, surrounded by untouched plates and the thick silence of everything she hadn't said. Outside, the November wind screamed against the windows like a warning from nature itself. 3 days later, Elena sat hunched at her desk in her home office, the glow of the computer screen soft and cold. The nausea that had become her daily companion still hung on well into the afternoon. She massaged her temples, trying to concentrate on the design proposal due Monday. Then the notification appeared. Owen had forgotten to log out of their shared cloud account. Her cursor hovered. She wasn't someone who pried. She took pride in the trust they had built. But something, maybe the same gut feeling that told her to hide the pregnancy test, made her click. And what she found turned her blood cold. Hotel bills, late-night dinner bookings for two at places she had never been, and hundreds of messages to someone named Camila. The most recent one: "Missing you already. Can't wait for tonight." Elena's hands trembled as she scrolled through the damning messages, each one cutting deeper than the last. They were filled with private jokes, soft words, tender pictures, but it was a photo that finally broke her. Owen, and a stunning brunette. Their faces close, her hand resting on his chest. The timestamp: last Friday. He had said he was at a client dinner. The woman had a quiet, effortless beauty, long, dark hair, a kind of spontaneous charm that seemed to leap through the screen. Camila Vega. According to her social media, she was 25, a branding consultant. Everything Elena wasn't. "Breathe," she whispered, her hand once again drifting to her belly. The room began to blur. Her carefully arranged artwork, her life's work, turned to nothing more than smudged colors and abstract pain. Her phone buzzed. "Sweetheart, you missed our lunch today. Everything okay?" "Mom," Elena tried to text back, but the only thing that came out was a sob. "I'll be there in 20, her mother replied without another word. While waiting, Elena printed it all. Every reservation, every message, every photo, a paper trail of betrayal. She stacked them into neat piles, the designer in her craving structure. Even in this chaos. When her mother arrived, she filled the house with a calm strength that Elena didn't know she'd needed, like a warm front rolling through a cold front, softening the air just enough to let someone breathe. Her mother's presence filled the space with a kind of strength Elena hadn't realized she was missing. At 58, Elena Morgan carried herself with the quiet resilience of someone who'd faced storms and survived them. "Oh, sweetheart," she said, taking in Elena's tear-streaked face and the piles of printed messages. She wrapped her daughter in an embrace that smelled like home, warm vanilla and lavender. "I'm pregnant," Elena whispered into her mother's shoulder. Diane stiffened just slightly, then pulled her daughter in tighter. "Start from the beginning," she said gently. So Elena told her everything: the test, the dinner, the discovery. Diane listened, her expression tightening with each new detail. When Elena finally stopped, her mother picked up one of the photos from the pile and studied it with narrowed eyes. "That bastard," Diane muttered, then quickly corrected herself. "Sorry, honey, but he doesn't deserve you, or this baby." "What do I do, Mom?" Elena's voice cracked. "I had everything planned, the nursery, the announcement at Christmas." "Plans change," Diane said quietly. "You're stronger than you think, Elena Grace, and you are not alone." A key turned in the front door. "Owen, home early for once." Diane squeezed Elena's hand. "Want me to stay?" Elena sat up straighter, wiping her eyes. "No, I need to do this myself." Owen stepped into the office and froze when he saw them. The papers, the tension, Diane's watchful eyes. "Elena," he began. "How long?" She cut in, her voice steady, surprisingly so, even to herself. "I should go," Diane said, standing. But before leaving, she looked Owen dead in the eye, cold, firm, unflinching. "I raised my daughter to know her worth. Remember that." Once the door shut, silence settled like smoke. Owen tugged at his tie, his tailwind nervous. "It's not what you think." "Don't," Elena said, her voice sharp as glass. "Don't insult me. I've seen everything." She stood, stacking the papers with calm precision. "I'm pregnant, by the way," she added flatly. "Found out 3 days ago. Was going to tell you over dinner. The one you skipped." He paled. "But I guess you were with Camila," she said. Owen took a step back, like the name physically struck him. "Elena, we can fix this. Camila was a mistake." "Mistake?" Elena snapped. She gestured to the pile. This wasn't a mistake. It was a decision. A string of them. Every dinner, every hotel room, every lie." Outside, the setting sun threw long shadows across the hardwood floors. Elena thought of how many evenings she'd spent alone, waiting for a man who was with someone else. The pain hardened into something else. Clarity. "I'll be staying with my parents tonight," she said, her voice unnaturally calm. "I suggest you use the time to think about what you want, because right now, you're about to lose everything." The next 2 weeks passed in a blur. Waves of morning sickness and sleepless nights in her childhood bedroom at her parents' restored Spanish-style home in the old Mission Hills district. Elena worked remotely, burying herself in client projects while ignoring Owen's increasingly desperate messages. Her father, Thomas, had taken to brewing her a special ginger tea every morning. His quiet, practical nature showed love through action rather than words. That Wednesday morning started like any other, until the cramping began. At first, Elena brushed it off as typical pregnancy discomfort, but then she noticed the blood. Panic gripped her chest. "Dad!" she called, her voice trembling. Thomas appeared in the doorway and took one look at her pale face before reaching for his car keys. "I'm calling your mother. She'll meet us at the hospital." The fluorescent lights of the emergency room cast a stark, unforgiving glow. Elena lay on the examination table, her mother Diane gripping her hand while Dr. Naomi Carter conducted the ultrasound. The silence in the room was suffocating. "There's still a heartbeat," Dr. Carter finally said. "But you're experiencing complications. The stress, it's impacting the pregnancy. You need full bed rest for the next 2 weeks, minimum." Elena didn't speak, couldn't. Her heart was thundering, loud in her ears, and yet her whole body felt cold. The baby, the one thing tethering her to the future, this small life growing inside her, was in danger. Her hand tightened instinctively over her belly. It wasn't just fear she felt, it was guilt. Had she done too much? Had the emails, the silence, the betrayal become too much to carry for them both? Diane's grip tightened. "We'll do whatever's needed." Just then, Owen stormed into the room, his usually crisp look undone. "I came as soon as I got Thomas's message. What's going on? Is everything okay?" Elena's voice was soft but resolute. "Please leave." "Elena, don't," he pleaded. "That's my child too." "Your child?" Diane's voice cut through the room like ice. She stood, her presence taking up the space with righteous fury. "Where were you when she needed you? When you were too busy destroying our family?" Dr. Carter cleared her throat. "Mr. Grant, I need you to step out. Any more stress could seriously endanger the baby." Owen hesitated, his slate eyes locked with Elena's. For just a second, she saw the man she had once married, concerned, present, maybe even scared. But then the images returned, the messages, the betrayal, and she turned away. Later that evening, cocooned in her childhood bed, Elena scrolled through her work emails to distract herself. That's when she spotted it. An anonymous message, subject line, "You should know." Inside a photo, Owen and Camila standing outside a jewelry store. His hand rested on the small of her back. The timestamp, yesterday. Beneath the image, a single sentence, "He's planning to leave you. I thought you deserved to know." A friend at the firm. The room tilted. Elena pressed a hand to her stomach, remembering Dr. Carter's warning about stress. A gentle knock at the door preceded her father's quiet entry. "Princess," Thomas said, using her childhood nickname. "I've been thinking." He paused, then added, "You remember that brownstone I bought in Fort Greene a while back? The one I said was for investment? It's sitting empty. Could use someone who knows how to make it feel like home." Elena looked at him, his kind eyes, the silver strands at his temples, the way he always seemed to understand what she needed before she ever said it. "Brooklyn," she whispered, letting the word roll across her tongue. "But my job, the divorce. Your boss already approved remote work." "Permanently," Thomas said with a small smile. "I called her," Diane said as she appeared in the doorway, phone in hand. "And about the divorce." She held it up, showing a contact. "Remember my college roommate? She's one of the top family attorneys in Manhattan now." "We've watched you dim your light for him for years," Thomas added as he sat at the edge of the bed. "Maybe it's time to shine on your own terms." Elena's hand moved to her belly, the gentle weight a reminder of the life growing inside her. New York meant starting over. It meant facing the unknown. Being truly alone for the first time since her 20s. But staying in San Diego? That meant watching her marriage dissolve inch by inch, witnessing Owen and Camila build a new life from the rubble of hers, enduring the quiet pity in every glance around familiar corners. Her phone buzzed again. "We need to talk about everything, please." "Owen." She deleted it without opening the rest. "Okay," she said, glancing between her parents. "New York, but not to run. To begin." Diane's smile was soft, misty-eyed. "That's my girl." That night, as autumn wind danced through the lemon trees outside their California home, Elena opened her laptop. She began with tabs on Brooklyn neighborhoods, prenatal vitamins, and New York divorce law. Each search felt like a brick laid in the foundation of something new, something that would be hers alone. Her phone lit up again. Owen. But this time, there was no panic, no dread, just the first faint feeling of release. She flipped the phone face down and returned to her future, one search at a time. By February, the hardwood floors of the brownstone in Fort Greene creaked beneath Elena's boots as she stepped into what would be her new life. Sunlight streamed through tall windows, painting golden squares across the bare rooms. At 5 months along, her bump now gently curved beneath an oversized sweater, an ever-present reminder of change and possibility. The last tenants left this old drafting table in the back room, Thomas said, trailing behind her. Figured you might want it for your design work. Elena brushed her fingers over the wood's worn grain. Perfect for late-night sketching when I can't sleep. It's perfect, she said softly. Diane stepped out of the kitchen, phone in hand. Just spoke with Vanessa. The papers will be ready tomorrow. Her voice was steady, but her eyes gave her away. Owen's contesting the terms, she said. He wants joint custody of a baby that isn't even born yet. Elena's hand moved protectively to her stomach. He gave up that right the moment he moved in with Camila. Diane nodded. Yes, but legally it's messy. It had been 2 weeks since she'd learned they were living together, Owen and Camila, in the same high-rise where Elena and Owen had spent their first year married. The cruel symmetry wasn't lost on her. A knock at the door interrupted their conversation. The movers had arrived. Elena stepped aside as boxes from her old life filled the entryway. What little she had chosen to bring. She retreated to the bay window of the room that would become her own, watching the city move below, the rhythm of Brooklyn already beginning to match her pulse. Thomas joined her, resting a hand gently on the frame. Your mother told me about Owen, he said quietly. We'll fight him. If necessary. You know that, right? Elena nodded, unable to speak past the lump in her throat. Her father, always the quiet protector, had been her anchor through every collapse. The afternoon passed in a blur of unpacking and rearranging. By sunset, her parents were preparing to head back to their hotel. The next day, they'd fly home to San Diego, leaving Elena truly alone for the first time since it all unraveled. Promise you'll call if you need anything, Diane said, hugging her daughter tightly. And don't forget, your first prenatal appointment with Dr. Patel is next week. I can fly back, she added quickly. Mom, Elena said gently, interrupting. I'll be okay. Really. After they left, Elena stood in her new living room, surrounded by half-open boxes and shadows thickening with the night. Beyond the tall windows, the city thrummed, honking horns, faint sirens, the distant rumble of the subway beneath Brooklyn streets. So different from San Diego's quiet calm. The silence settled too quickly. For a moment she didn't move, just stood there, arms wrapped around herself, listening to a home that wasn't yet home. The bravado she'd shown at the doorway, the brave smile, the calm tone, cracked under the weight of reality. She was really alone now, and the fear that crept in wasn't about being unloved. It was about being unseen, unsupported, unheard. If something went wrong. Her phone chimed. Owen, my lawyer reached out to yours. We need to talk about the baby. Please don't shut me out. Before she could reply, another message popped up, from an unknown number. You can't run forever. He'll never be just yours. The breath caught in Elena's chest. Camila. The audacity made her hands shake. With trembling fingers, she blocked both numbers. Then, fueled by a jolt of stubborn resolve, she dove into the unpacking again. Every item she placed felt like an act of resistance. Her favorite ceramic mug on the counter, sketches pinned beside the drafting table, clothes neatly arranged in the closet. This space, this home, was hers. At the bottom of a box labeled Office, she found it. Her old college sketchbook, thick with ideas and plans she'd once had for herself. Before everything became about Owen's life, Owen's career, Owen's needs. She sat at the drafting table, flipping through the worn pages, and then, on the last blank sheet, she began to draw. Not a nursery or a logo or something for a client. Something new, something undefined. Shapes, lines, chaos taking form. She sketched until her hand ached and the lights from the city sparkled through her window. Then a soft flutter stirred beneath her skin. The baby. Her baby. Moving for the first time. Elena pressed a hand to the spot. Just you and me, little one, she whispered. We're going to be okay. She looked around, the old table lit by streetlight, the skyline beyond the glass, a world brimming with possibilities. For the first time since November, she felt something close to peace. Tomorrow would bring lawyers and battles, appointments and deadlines. But tonight, she let herself breathe, let herself exist. A woman writing her story again, one page at a time. Spring arrived in Brooklyn in a sweep of cherry blossoms and unseasonably warm days. At 7 months pregnant, Elena had built a life that felt close to stable. Her days followed a rhythm now: morning calls with clients, walks through Fort Greene Park, and evenings spent growing her freelance design work. Her body had changed. Her life had changed. But her spirit had grown in ways she never expected. That Tuesday morning found her tucked into her favorite seat at the Daily Grind, a tiny cafe nestled on a side street. A half-empty decaf vanilla iced coffee sweated on the table beside her open laptop. She was reviewing logo concepts for a startup's rebrand. Rose, the elderly owner, always saved her the same corner table, close to the counter, far from the window, and perfect for quiet focus with just enough of the world in view. "Mind if I join you?" "Every other table's taken." Elena looked up to see a tall, clean-shaven man with a close-cropped beard and kind, dark eyes. He held a small Turkish coffee in one hand and a laptop bag slung over his shoulder. Something about him, calm, confident but not imposing, made her pause. Just for a second. Then she nodded. "I'm Lucas," he said, sliding into the seat across from her. The warm scent of cedar and citrus from his cologne mingled with the cafe's familiar coffee and pastry aromas. "Elena," she replied, and quickly turned back to her laptop, hoping her focus would ward off further conversation. She'd had enough of charming strangers to last her a lifetime. To her surprise, Lucas didn't press. He opened his laptop and started typing. Occasionally, she saw him stroke his beard absently while squinting at the screen, a small, human quirk that made him seem grounded. Safe. The easy silence between them was broken when her phone buzzed against the table. The screen lit up. Owen's attorney. Her stomach twisted as she declined the call, but not before Lucas noticed the change in her face. "Bad news?" he asked gently. Maybe it was the hormones, maybe just the exhaustion of pretending she was fine. But the words came before she could stop them. "My ex-husband's lawyer. They're pressing for joint custody. The baby's not even born yet." Lucas nodded slowly and closed his laptop. "I don't know much about family law," he said, "but I do know a little about bad breakups. My ex-fiancée tried to take half my software company when we split." Despite herself, Elena raised an eyebrow. "What happened?" "She was more into my equity than me," he said with a dry smile. "Taught me a pricey lesson in trust." Before she could respond, her phone buzzed again. This time it was her OB's office. She listened to the voicemail and her expression darkened. "Everything okay?" Lucas asked as she slipped her phone back onto the table. "They canceled my appointment," she said quietly. "Pushed it to next week. I had a few things I needed to ask about." She stopped herself, oversharing again. This was still a stranger, wasn't it? But something about Lucas didn't feel like a stranger. Not entirely. There was no push, no pity in his voice, just an ease, a presence that didn't press or prod. And after months of silence and tension, even the gentlest kind of listening felt like relief. Still, her instinct to protect herself kicked in. She shifted in her seat, not ready to let the softness settle. Lucas pulled a small card from his wallet and slid it across the table. "My sister's an OB at Mount Z Medical, best in the city. Tell her I sent you. She still owes me for bailing her out of a website mess last month." Elena studied the card. Dr. Layla Calloway, maternal fetal medicine. And when she looked back at Lucas, she noticed the resemblance. Same shape to the eyes, same easy warmth behind the smile. "I don't need," she started. "Not charity," Lucas said gently. "Just one parent-to-be helping another." He paused. "I have a daughter, from my first marriage. Those prenatal appointments, they're not something anyone should go through alone." Something in his voice, quiet understanding without a hint of pity, made Elena's guard soften, just slightly. She slipped the card into her wallet. "Thank you," she said, barely above a whisper. Just then, Rose appeared with a tray. "Your usual, Mr. Calloway," she said, placing a sandwich in front of him. Then, turning to Elena with a wink, "And for you, honey, I added extra pickles to your sandwich. Growing babies deserve their cravings." Lucas arched a brow. "Turkey Club extra pickles, no tomatoes?" "That's been my go-to for months," Elena replied, a hint of a smile breaking through. "Minus the turkey, plus cucumber." The sun slanted through the cafe's windows, casting golden light across their shared table. For the first time in what felt like ages, the weight pressing down on Elena's chest lifted, just a little. Not because of Lucas, exactly, But because of the reminder that not every new connection had to end in betrayal, her phone buzzed again. "Reese, Sterling misses his family. The family you're taking from him." Elena's fingers curled tightly around her phone. Lucas glanced up, sensing the shift, but said nothing. Instead, he nudged the plate of cookies toward her. "Sometimes," he said casually, eyes back on his screen, "the best revenge is living well." Elena stared at the cookies. Living well. Maybe that's what this all came down to. Not running, not fighting, just living. Living well. On her own terms. She took a slow breath, then reached for one of the cookies. Its warmth, still lingering from the tray, grounded her. Maybe for the first time in months, she wasn't reacting. She was choosing. Choosing to move forward, choosing to stay soft when bitterness begged to take root. She reopened her design software. But this time, her strokes had purpose, lines filled with energy, sketches blooming with possibility. She was building something entirely her own. The summer air in Manhattan was thick with humidity as Elena waddled, there was no more graceful way to put it, into her attorney's office. 8 months pregnant. Dr. Layla Calloway had become more than her doctor, a confidant, a friend, one who assured her, time and again, that despite the chaos, she and the baby were thriving. But today? Today was different. Today's meeting threatened to unravel the calm Elena had spent months carefully rebuilding. "Sterling's filed for an emergency hearing," her lawyer Diana Morrison said, sliding the document across her desk. "He's alleging you fled the state to deny him his parental rights." Elena's grip tightened on the armrests of the chair. "Fled?" she echoed, voice rising. "I left because he moved in with his mistress." "I know," Diana said, her tone sympathetic. "But his legal team, they have reach. Even here, they're demanding mediation before the birth." A sharp kick from the baby made Elena flinch, as if it too sensed the stress. 8 months. 8 months of starting over, building a life from scratch. And now Owen was trying to pull her back into the wreckage. "When?" she asked. "Next week? In Charleston?" The room tilted slightly. Charleston, where Owen and Camila now played house in her old penthouse, where whispers would trail her every move. "I'll go with you." "We'll show them exactly why you left," Diana said, her voice steady. Outside the law office, the sky had turned heavy with the threat of a summer storm. The streetlights flickered on early as the clouds rolled in. Elena's phone buzzed, a message from Lucas. "Lucas, coffee shop's empty. Perfect spot to knock out that deadline design you mentioned." Over the past month, their chance encounter had grown into a steady, easy friendship. Lucas never pushed, never assumed, just offered quiet support and the occasional dad joke that somehow made her laugh, even on the hardest days. His daughter Lily had even joined them now and then, 7 years old, with endless questions, rainbow-colored doodles that lit up every coffee-stained napkin in the shop. But today, Elena couldn't. Elena, rain check. Lawyer meeting ran long. 3 dots appeared almost instantly. "Everything okay?" She didn't have a chance to answer. Another notification popped up. "Camila, looking forward to seeing you next week." Owen's already baby-proofing the house. The rage hit fast, sharp and raw. Elena snatched up her phone to block Camila's number again, but her shaking fingers slipped, tapping her photo gallery by mistake. And there it was, a photo from last November, her and Owen, dressed in formal wear at a charity gala. His hand at her waist, both smiling. She looked so happy, so unaware, so foolish. Thunder cracked overhead as rain began to fall in thick pounding sheets. Elena ducked into the subway station, her thoughts spiraling. Mediation meant returning to Charleston, facing Owen, facing Camila, facing the city that had watched her fall apart. Another buzz. "Lucas, Lily wants to know if you're still coming to her recital next week." No pressure, just tossing it out there. Something broke open inside her. Lily, the little girl who had accepted her without hesitation, who drew stick-figure portraits of Miss Elena and baby in bright crayon colors, who didn't ask for anything but still offered everything warm and sincere. "Elena, I can't. I have to go to Charleston. Legal stuff." The response came almost immediately. "Lucas, need a friend to talk to?" Rose just pulled fresh cookies out of the oven. Elena hesitated. Her default had always been retreat. To do everything alone. Carry it all. But she heard Dr. Calloway's words in her mind. Words from her last appointment. Strength isn't about shouldering everything alone. Sometimes it's letting people help you carry it. "Elena. Actually, I could really use those cookies. 20 minutes later, she sat in their familiar corner of the daily grind. Rain lashed the windows while she told Lucas everything. The emergency hearing, Camila's message, the court date in Charleston. When she finished, Lucas leaned back. "You want backup?" he asked. "Lily's recital got postponed anyway. I could come with you. Fly down, no strings, no expectations, just a friend in your corner." Elena looked at him. This man, who had never once made her feel weak for needing help, who respected every boundary while offering steady, unconditional support. For the first time, Elena really let herself see him. The warmth in his eyes, the steadiness of his presence, the way he never tried to fix her pain, just made space for it. "I can't ask you to." "You didn't," Lucas said, gently cutting her off. "I offered." Big difference. Outside, the storm finally eased. Pale sunlight broke through the clouds, brushing gold against the windows. Elena felt something shift deep inside. Not just the baby's movements, but something quieter, something more personal. A wall lowering, a door cracking open. Still, even as she said yes, a flicker of doubt crept in. Why would someone like him want to be in her corner? She wasn't easy. Her life was a mess. Her trust was fractured. A quiet voice, faint but persistent, whispered that she might be too much, too complicated. And yet, he stayed. That, more than anything, shook her. "Okay," she said softly. "Thank you." Charleston's familiar humidity clung to her skin like regret as she stepped out of the courthouse. The mediation had gone exactly as she expected. Brutal. Owen, immaculate in his custom suit, played the part of the devoted, expectant father with rehearsed precision. His legal team? Ruthless. They painted her as unstable, vindictive, accused her of weaponizing the pregnancy. "You did well in there," Lucas murmured as he fell in step beside her, his calm presence the only thing keeping her from unraveling. He had kept his word, flew in the day before, booked a room at a separate hotel to avoid giving Owen's team any ammunition. "Did I?" Elena's voice broke. "You heard them. Manipulative, unhinged, using my baby as leverage." Her hand instinctively moved to her stomach. The baby kicked, unusually active, sensing her stress. "Miss Morgan." Elena froze. The voice was unmistakable. She turned and came face to face with Camila Vega. Even more striking in person. Dark, glossy hair, a sleek designer dress that hugged every curve. But it was her expression that chilled Elena to the bone, smug, poised, confident. "I think we should talk," Camila said, stepping closer, woman to woman. Lucas shifted subtly, moving in front of Elena. "I don't think that's necessary," he said, voice calm but firm. "And you are?" Camila's brow lifted in challenge. Before Lucas could answer, Elena found her voice. Relieving. But Camila didn't back down. "Owen's changed," she said. "He's ready to be a father, to make things right if you just be reasonable." "Reasonable?" The word exploded from Elena, raw and sharp. "Was he being reasonable when he cheated on me for months, when he lied to my face, when he moved you into our home, before I'd even finished packing?" The baby kicked again, harder this time. Elena winced, pressing a hand to her side. Lucas's hand was there instantly, steadying her at the elbow. "You should go," he told Camila, his tone quiet but resolute. For the first time, something flickered behind Camila's eyes as she looked at them. "Oh, I see," Camila sneered. "Didn't take you long to replace him, did it? That's enough." The voice came sharp and unyielding, from Diane stepping out of the courthouse like she'd been summoned by instinct. "My daughter doesn't owe you explanations. Not now. Not ever." Camila opened her mouth to reply, but just then Owen and his legal team emerged, their arrival creating just enough distraction. Elena seized the moment. With Lucas on one side and Diane on the other, she slipped away. They ended up at a quiet cafe a few blocks from the courthouse, one Elena had never visited during her time in Charleston. It felt like neutral ground. While Diane went to order drinks, Lucas studied her closely. "Your hands are shaking." Elena looked down at her fingers, trembling in her lap. Seeing Owen and Camila together, it made everything real in a way no text or photo ever could. "You want to know what I saw?" Lucas asked gently. Elena nodded, unsure what she wanted to hear. "I saw two people clinging to a decision they're not sure about, and one incredibly strong woman who knows exactly what she's doing." Tears stung at the corners of Elena's eyes. "I'm not strong," she said, voice catching. "I'm terrified. The mediator recommended shared custody from birth, mandatory trips back here every month, Owen having a say in every major decision." Being strong doesn't mean you're not scared, Lucas said quietly. It means you keep going anyway. Diane returned with their drinks. Chamomile tea for Elena, Turkish coffee for Lucas. Over the past 2 days, she'd taken to fussing over both of them, clearly approving of the friendship blossoming between them. The lawyers think we can push back on some of the recommendations, Diane said, taking a seat. Especially the monthly returns. No judge is going to force a nursing mother to fly back and forth. Elena took a slow sip of tea, letting the warmth spread through her. Outside the window, she could see the steeples of St. Michael's Church, the very place she and Owen had once said their vows. It didn't hurt anymore. Just a quiet acknowledgement of what had ended. Whatever happens, Lucas said, his voice steady, you've got people in your corner. In New York, here too, you're not alone. The baby moved inside her, gentler this time. Elena thought of Brooklyn, the brownstone, the peaceful days, her business, Lily's laughter, Lucas's steady presence. Owen and Camila may have claimed her past, but they couldn't touch her future. She met Lucas's gaze. No, she said softly, I'm not alone anymore. The August heat wave scorched New York, but it couldn't compare to the tension boiling over in Owen's law office. Elena sat stiffly in a leather chair, 9 months pregnant, bone-tired, and done pretending. Owen's voice rang out across the conference room. You can't seriously be considering a home birth in New York, he snapped, pacing the length of the table. Our child should be born in Charleston, in the same hospital where generations of archers. Our child? Elena cut in, her voice sharp enough to halt him mid-step. You mean the child you denied was yours? Elena said, her voice cutting clean through the room. When Camila threatened to walk out on you? Owen froze mid-step. His face paled, lips parting as if to defend himself, but nothing came out. Behind him, the Manhattan skyline shimmered beneath the weight of late summer heat, a world away from Charleston's quiet charm. Who told you that? He asked, barely above a whisper. Your father? Elena replied, calm but unwavering. Harrison called me last week. He's not proud of how his son's been acting. Owen's expression shattered in slow motion. Harrison Archer, stoic, guarded, had reached out completely unexpectedly. His message still echoed in Elena's mind. You deserve better than what my son became. The silence hung thick until Diana Morrison, her lawyer, cleared her throat. If we could return to the matter at hand. But a sharp, deep pain gripped Elena's abdomen, stealing her breath. She'd been brushing off contractions all morning, telling herself it was just Braxton Hicks. This wasn't Braxton Hicks. Elena? Diana's voice felt far away. Do you need? I'm fine, she said through clenched teeth. Then another wave hit, stronger, sharper, and with a sudden rush her water broke. A hush fell over the room. Owen's expression shifted from defensive to full-blown panic. Someone call an ambulance. No, Elena gasped, already fumbling for her phone with trembling fingers. Call Lucas. He'll take me to Dr. Calloway. Lucas? Owen sputtered. You're in labor, and you want that? That what? Elena snapped, even as another contraction tore through her. That man who's been there for every appointment, who painted the nursery, who makes sure I eat when I'm too busy to remember. Diana was already dialing. Owen's legal team looked increasingly unsettled by the scene unraveling in front of them. Through the blur of pain, Elena caught something in Owen's face, a flicker of recognition. Regret, maybe. Too late. Lucas arrived within minutes, all quiet efficiency and calm. He took one look at Elena and was by her side in an instant, supporting her with practiced ease. Your hospital bag's still in my car from yesterday's scare, he said gently. Layla's waiting. Everything's ready. Owen stepped forward, frantic. I'm coming too. That's my child. No, Elena's voice was unwavering. You'll be notified when the baby's born, just like we agreed, but you don't get to be there for this. Another contraction gripped her as Lucas led her out. Behind them, she heard Owen's voice rising again, Diana stepping in to defuse it. But all Elena focused on was the feel of Lucas's hand on her back, his heartbeat steady against hers in the car as they sped through traffic. And finally, in the quiet between contractions, her tears spilled. I didn't want it to be like this, she whispered. None of it. I know, Lucas said gently, eyes on the road. But you're doing amazing. And hey, this little one's already got perfect dramatic timing. Elena let out a soft laugh, then winced as another wave of pain hit. Almost there, Lucas assured her. Layla's ready. I'll be right outside if you need anything. Elena hesitated, then swallowed her fear. "Will you stay in the room?" she asked quietly. "I don't want to do this alone." Lucas met her gaze in the rearview mirror. His eyes held something steady, something real, something that made her heart skip. "You never have to do anything alone again," Lucas said quietly, eyes on the road. "Not unless you want to." As they pulled up in front of Mount C Medical Center, Elena felt something shift inside her. Not just the baby preparing to arrive, but something deeper. Something in her soul that settled into place. She had walked away from a life built on illusion and found something real. Her phone buzzed. 2 messages, one from Owen, one from Lily. "Lily, good luck with the baby. Dad says I can meet my new friend tomorrow." Through the pain, Elena smiled. Family wasn't always what you were born into or married into. Sometimes it was what you built from the ashes. And in that moment, barely holding herself together in the back seat, gripping Lucas's hand between contractions, she realized this wasn't survival anymore. It was transformation. This child wasn't just a second chance. He was the beginning of something completely her own. Rowan Jennings came into the world at 3:47 a.m. on a warm August morning, his first cry sharp and clear, echoing through the delivery room. Dr. Layla Calloway placed the tiny squirming body on Elena's chest, while Lucas, still holding her hand, watched with tears shining in his eyes. "He's perfect," Elena whispered, her voice catching as she counted tiny fingers, tiny toes. His hair was dark, thick for a newborn, and when he blinked, just once, she caught a flicker of familiar sea-green eyes. Lucas gave her hand a gentle squeeze. Just like his mom. The next few hours passed in a blur of nurses, soft voices, and a quiet, almost sacred kind of wonder. Diane and Thomas arrived not long after dawn, having caught the earliest flight from Charleston. They found their daughter glowing with exhaustion, joy wrapped around her like a blanket, Rowan sleeping peacefully against her chest. "Owen's in the waiting room," Diane said gently after they'd had their time with the baby. "Hospital policy says we can't keep him out." Elena took a breath, looked down at Rowan's perfect face. "It's okay," she said. "He should meet his son." Lucas began to step away, but Elena reached out and caught his hand. "Stay," she said. "Please." Owen entered with none of his usual poise. He froze just inside the doorway at the sight in front of him. Elena in the hospital bed, Lucas beside her, and the baby, bundled in soft blue, nestled in her arms. "Would you like to meet your son?" Elena asked, her voice steady. "His name is Rowan Jennings." Owen's jaw tightened at the surname, but he didn't argue. He stepped forward. Elena carefully transferred Rowan into his arms. Owen's hands shook as he held the baby, stared down at him. "He has your eyes," he said softly. And for just a moment, barely more than a breath, Elena saw the man she had once loved, unshielded, raw, real. She wanted that moment to matter. She wanted it to last longer than a heartbeat. But truth didn't stretch, it stood still. And the truth was, even stripped of arrogance, Owen didn't belong here anymore. Then his phone buzzed. Camila's name lit up the screen, the moment fractured. Owen gently passed Rowan back to Elena, face closing in on itself like a shutter slamming down. "I'll have my lawyer contact yours about visitation," he said, flat. He turned and walked out. The door clicked shut behind him. The silence that followed was broken only by Rowan's quiet whimper. Elena adjusted herself, cradling her son and beginning to nurse. For the first time, peace settled over her completely. The man who had just left wasn't the one she had married. Maybe he never had been. She hadn't lost him. She had let go of the illusion. "You okay?" Lucas asked, his voice low, after Diane and Thomas stepped out to get coffee. "Surprisingly, yes," Elena said with a soft smile, glancing down at her son as he nursed. "For the first time, I really am." A knock at the door broke the moment. It opened to reveal Lily, practically vibrating with excitement, trailed by a sheepish-looking Dr. Calloway. She couldn't wait any longer to meet her new friend, Layla said with a grin. Lily crept toward the bed, eyes wide as she took in the tiny bundle in Elena's arms. "He's so small," she whispered. "Was I that small, Dad?" "Even smaller," Lucas chuckled, scooping her up to give her a better view. Elena watched them, Lily's fascination, Lucas's steady presence, and felt tears prick at the corners of her eyes. Happy tears, this time. This was what family could be. Not a performance, not a prison of expectations, but a refuge. A harbor built on love, safety, and choice. For so long, she had convinced herself that love had to be earned, proved, fought for through silence and sacrifice. But watching Lily rest her head gently against Rowan's, seeing Lucas's arm secure around them both, she knew this love asked for none of that. It simply welcomed her in. Still, even as warmth spread through her chest, a sliver of fear lingered. What if this too slipped away? What if one day, Lily called someone else Mom? What if Lucas's devotion faded as suddenly as Owen's had? But she caught herself, exhaled slowly, and let the fear pass. It was only the ghost of old wounds, echoes, not prophecy. That evening, as the city glowed through the hospital windows, Elena scrolled through photos on her phone. Rowan with his grandparents, with Lily making goofy faces, with Lucas holding him with such care while Elena rested. Then, a message. Camila. Sterling's devastated you used your maiden name. This isn't over. Elena stared at it for a moment, and then deleted it. No response. Let Owen and Camila play their games. She had her son, her strength, and a man beside her who'd shown her what love and support really looked like. She leaned down and pressed a kiss to Rowan's forehead. Sweet dreams, little one, she whispered. Welcome to our perfectly imperfect family. November in Brooklyn dressed the streets in amber leaves, a vivid contrast to the gray, broken morning exactly 1 year ago when Elena's world had fallen apart. Now, standing in the center of her brownstone living room surrounded by streamers and balloons, she could hardly believe it. Rowan's 3-month celebration was in full swing. The cake's here, Lily announced, darting in from the kitchen where Lucas was setting up the food. Now 7, she had claimed the role of Rowan's official big sister with all the seriousness of a sworn oath. And Dad didn't even drop it this time. That was one time, Lucas called back, following with a grin. He wrapped an arm around Elena's waist, natural and effortless. And if I recall correctly, someone bumped into me while chasing a butterfly. The doorbell rang. Diane and Thomas arrived early, arms full of party supplies. Since moving to New York 2 months ago, they hadn't missed a single milestone. Their move, surprisingly, had been helped by Harrison Archer, another unexpected ally. Where's my favorite grandson? Diane cooed, sweeping Rowan from his playmat as he giggled and reached for her necklace. Thomas leaned toward Elena and spoke low. Owen called, said he wouldn't be coming. Big case or something. Elena just nodded, not surprised. Since Rowan's birth, Owen's involvement had faded. Visitations supervised, then sporadic. Last week his lawyer reached out to Diana, proposing a modification. Reduced custody in exchange for increased financial support. It was better this way. This way, Elena said softly, watching Rowan giggle as Lily played peekaboo beside him. He needs consistency, not obligation. The afternoon unfolded in waves of laughter and light, filling their home with the kind of warmth that couldn't be forced. It had to be lived. Dr. Layla Calloway arrived with her wife, arms full of baby gifts for their very spoiled nephew. Rose from the coffee shop came bearing her signature cookies, and happy tears after watching this unconventional family bloom over months of shared coffee and stories. Later, Lucas found Elena in the kitchen, stealing a quiet moment while the party continued in the next room. Penny for your thoughts, he asked gently. She leaned into him. Just thinking about last November, she murmured. How lost I felt, how impossible all of this seemed. And now, I understand. Sometimes things have to fall apart completely before they can be rebuilt into something better. She turned to face him, her eyes meeting his, the face that had become her anchor. Thank you, she said quietly, for being there while I put the pieces back together. Thank you, Lucas replied just as softly, for letting me. Dad, Mom, Lily's voice rang out from the living room. Rowan's eating the wrapping paper. They froze. Mom, the word hovered in the air, tender and electric. Their eyes met, wide and filled with quiet astonishment. The word landed softly but shook something loose in Elena. It wasn't just a title. It was trust, recognition, love, all wrapped into one syllable. And it came from Lily, who had chosen her freely. Not out of obligation, not out of expectation, but because Elena had become that place she could count on. Then they rushed out together, laughing, to rescue Rowan from his paper snack. That night, after the guests had gone and both children were sound asleep, Elena sat at her drafting table. Her old sketchbook lay open, pages now filled with fresh designs, new dreams. On the last page, a different kind of drawing had begun to take shape. A family portrait. Not a flawless, posed version, but a messy, beautiful, real one. Her phone buzzed. Camila. Sterling signed the papers. You won. Elena looked at the screen, then at the framed photo on her desk. Rowan in Lucas's arms, Lily laughing beside them. The three of them at the park just last weekend. She didn't reply. She didn't need to. This had never been about winning. It was about finding the strength to let go of a life that wasn't meant for her, and the courage to embrace one that was. She closed the sketchbook and walked to the nursery, where Lucas was already putting away the last of Rowan's new toys. In the soft glow of the nightlight, their eyes met, and there it was again, that steady warmth in her chest. Not the wild, desperate love she'd once mistaken for forever, but something truer, kinder, real. "Ready for bed?" Lucas asked, holding out his hand. Elena took it, their fingers intertwining easily. Ready for everything. Outside, the November wind stirred the Brooklyn trees, but this time it carried no warnings, no sorrow, only the soft hush of new beginnings, of love, rebuilt from broken pieces, of a future brighter than anything she could have dreamed on that dark morning a year ago. That night, as she drifted to sleep with Rowan's soft breathing on the baby monitor and Lucas's heartbeat beneath her cheek, Elena smiled. She wasn't the woman who'd stared at that pregnancy test in Charleston. She was stronger now, wiser, and finally, completely herself. November had come full circle. Not with endings, but beginnings. And she was ready for them all. Rowan, now a spirited 3-year-old with his mother's sea-green eyes and a mess of untamable dark curls, sat perched at the kitchen counter, helping Lucas make pancakes. More batter ended up on his cheeks than in the bowl. "Careful, little man," Lucas chuckled, wiping flour from his son's nose. "Remember what happened last time?" "I made it snow in the kitchen," Rowan declared proudly. Across the table, Lily, now 10 and fully invested in her title as Big Sister Extraordinaire, rolled her eyes with affection as she finished her homework. Elena watched from the doorway, one hand resting on her gently swelling belly. This spring had been full of surprises. Her design firm had landed a major contract, her latest digital collection was featured in a Soho gallery, and the memoir she'd written about heartbreak, reinvention, and rebuilding had just found a publisher. But none of it compared to this. To mornings filled with batter-smeared laughter and the rhythm of life in a house filled with love. There had been years where silence filled her mornings, cold counters, untouched coffee, a home that echoed with absence. Now the kitchen was chaos. Loud, messy, alive. And it was everything she never knew she needed. Bowen's last visit had been over 6 months ago. He'd barely recognized Rowan. His relationship with Camila had imploded spectacularly. She'd left him for an up-and-coming politician in a scandal that cost Owen his law partnership. He'd moved to California soon after, the monthly support checks still arriving, but his presence now reduced to holiday cards and occasional video calls. There had been a time when that would have broken Elena. Now she just watched Lucas spend hours building blanket forts, whispering bedtime prayers in Turkish, soothing nightmares, and knew the truth. Fatherhood was never about biology. "Mom?" Lily's voice pulled her from her thoughts. "Did you tell Dad the baby's name yet?" Lucas looked up, flour on his hands, curiosity shining in his eyes. They had decided not to find out the baby's gender. But Elena had been holding the name choices close. "If it's a girl," Elena said, joining them at the counter, "I was thinking Rose. A tribute to the coffee shop owner who'd unknowingly helped form their family. And if it's a boy?" "Harrison," she said with a soft smile, "for the man who reminded me people can surprise you." Lucas's eyes filled with quiet understanding. He leaned over, brushed a kiss into her flour-dusted hair. "Perfect. Can we visit Aunt Layla today?" Rowan asked, managing somehow to get batter in his curls. "She said she'd show me pictures of when I was in Mommy's belly. After we clean up this kitchen hurricane." Elena laughed. "And someone takes a bath." As they worked together to restore order to the flour-dusted chaos, Elena caught sight of their reflection in the window. 4 of them, laughing, tangled in love and powdered sugar. The morning light caught on her wedding ring. She and Lucas had married in a tiny ceremony inside the Daily Grind, the place where everything had begun. Rose had officiated. Lily tossed petals down the aisle, and Rowan, giggling, had toddled forward with the rings. Life wasn't a polished performance, she'd learned. It was wild, unpredictable, a mosaic of broken pieces, rebuilt into something stronger, if you were brave enough. Her phone buzzed. A message from Diane, confirming plans for family dinner that evening. Just below it was an old message she'd kept, from Camila. You'll never have the perfect family you wanted. And in a way, Camila had been right. Elena hadn't gotten the perfect family she'd once imagined. She got something better, the one she truly needed. And it was more beautiful than anything she could have planned. Dear friend, sometimes life gives us exactly what we need, just not in the way we expected. Elena's journey reminds us of a quiet but powerful truth echoed in Stoic thought. We don't control the events that shape our path, only how we choose to walk it. She didn't plan for heartbreak, for loss, or for a future without the man she thought would stay. But she chose to stay soft, stay open, and rebuild. Slowly, imperfectly, beautifully. That's where the real strength lives. So if you find yourself staring at ruins, remember, even broken things can be rearranged into something whole. You are not what's happened to you. You are what you do with it. Your peace, your healing, your joy. They're not behind you. They're ahead, waiting. If this story touched you, please like, share, and subscribe to our channel so more stories like Elena's can find the hearts that need them. Thank you for being here.